Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, October the 2nd, and welcome to our commentary. This is our first Monday of October. And wasn't there a expression about the Supreme Court? I think maybe first Tuesday of October or something like that. But yes, the Supreme Court does get back into session this month. And they are expecting some interesting cases coming up this year. And we're going to get into more of that as we go on. So let's. This is going to be, of course, the first session in full for the lady who was appointed by President Biden, Jackson, Justice Jackson, I think is her. Barrett, no, not Barrett Jackson. That's Barrett is the other lady, but Justice Jackson is the lady who was appointed by President Biden. So she's going to get her first full term. And we'll probably read some of her opinions next June, because that's kind of the way it works out. They hear all these cases in October and November, and then they start writing opinions later on in June, especially the big ones. That's when they come later in June 2024. Well, I have to begin. You know, President Trump was in New York in one of these cases up there, and he came out attacking the judge, and on these New York cases, I think President Trump is 100% correct in what he's saying. Now, I don't know if Letitia James is a racist. I don't know that, but I think the whole approach of justice right now in New York against President Trump, where you simply accuse him of anything, and you have this mentality of getting Trump. I think that's deadly for the country. And that's something that the Democrats need to be very careful how they tread into that territory. Because once you start talking about getting people rather than, applying justice or enforcing the law, once you start talking about getting people and targeting people by using the justice system, either at the federal level or at the state level, you're walking into some pretty deadly territory. And in terms of the Democrats, this is territory who's, frankly, where it could come back to haunt them later when some of the same tactics are used against them. I've always been a believer that you got to keep some of this political stuff out of justice. And look, the Attorney General in New York literally ran for office saying, vote for me and we're going to get Trump. Well, that's awfully irresponsible of the Attorney General to do that. I mean, it's one thing to say, vote for me and we're going to defend New York, let's say, from the Trump policies. That's kind of what Attorney General Paxton has done here in Texas, where, he runs against executive orders or the policies of the Biden administration that he believes are overreach. But that's totally different than targeting one man, as they're doing in New York. And I am very disappointed, frankly, that more Democrats are not standing up and saying, we don't do this in the United States. I'm really disappointed that some Democrats are not doing that, because when it comes to this, all these cases in New York, I think they're all politically driven, and they're all going to crash when they go into the real courts. But for the time being, of course, they get all the publicity, and that's a bad thing. It's a terrible signal that we're sending to the people of New York and the people of the country, and frankly, the people of the world, that kind of banana republic tactic is being used in the United States against a former president. That's a terrible, terrible tactic. Speaking of New York, the governor of New York has sort of gone, I guess, full 180 degrees when it comes to immigration. Back in November of 2021, she was welcoming people, saying, hey, come, we're an open state, sanctuary city, we welcome you, come, and we will take care of you. Well, it's a totally different message now. She was on CBS, the governor of New York was on CBS this weekend, and they were asking her some questions, and she said, look, the border is too open right now, meaning too many people are coming in, and we've got to restrict who's coming in. I mean, she sounded like Trump when it comes to the border. It's amazing to me how these people are starting to sound like Trump, all these Democrats, whether it's the the governor of New York or the mayor of New York City, they're all starting to sound like Trump when it comes to immigration. Well, of course, as we have mentioned before, the reason is very simple. Demagoguery about sanctuary cities has crashed head on with the reality of sanctuary cities. You know, a lot of these people didn't realize that sanctuary cities meant that people were going to come. I guess they didn't know that, or they didn't realize that. They thought, well, we're so far away from New York, they're never going to come here. Well, they're there, and there's lots of them. There's lots of them, and they're representing quite a burden, not just to the state of New York, but to the taxpayers of New York. They've become quite a burden and something that, what can I tell you? Something that is becoming a very serious political problem. In fact, there's a story that I saw a few hours ago. The story is President Trump or President Biden turning his allies into enemies when it comes to immigration. Because more and more of the burden of immigration, these people showing up at different cities, is happening in blue cities, where these blue city mayors or governors of these states are being forced to provide services and provide resources for people, and they don't have for their own people. I mean, in Chicago, they're staying at O'Hare International Airport. That's where these people are staying, at the airport. I mean, that's just absolutely incredible, absolutely crazy, absolutely chaotic. And what else can I tell you about it? That's what's happening with immigration. So that's why the governor of New York is all of a sudden singing a different tune. She's saying, hey, you know, too many people are coming over. We have to restrict who's coming over. Now, of course, she's right. You know, in terms of policy, she's exactly right. It's just that they waited too long to say that, because before it was fashionable and very popular among Democrats to use sanctuary cities against, let's say, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. They would throw this at Governor Abbott and say, see, you know, you're not interested in being open and inclusive like we New Yorkers. Well, that was the old days. Now they're dealing with a problem. They're actually dealing with the same problem that we're dealing with in South Texas. It's not that different. I mean, and the problem is, of course, large numbers of people crossing the border, in some cases being given a piece of paper that says you're going to see a judge in 3 years. You know, whether they see the judge or not, from what I understand, most of them don't, because the objective is to get into the United States. And if you think about, you think about a city like Los Angeles, for example. Let's say somebody from Central America goes into that city. You can get lost so easily in that city as an illegal immigrant. And how are they going to find you? How are they going to find you? They can't, which is why the system of letting people in on the basis of a meeting with a judge is a very bad system. These cases should be looked at outside of the country, so that when you come to the door of the United States, when you come through immigration, your case has already been settled. Your case has been settled one way or the other. And if you've been accepted in the United States, we're going to let you in. And we're going to let you in, and we'll give you a work visa or whatever so you can support your family. That's the correct way to do it, but not the way we're doing it right now. And that's why it's so chaotic in so many of these places. Well, one last little story. I think the Democrats have finally replaced or have nominated someone to replace the late Senator Feinstein, who passed away a few days ago. The lady, I cannot think of her last name right now, but she is a lady with a long tradition or resume of Democrat activism. I think she was involved in something called Emily's List, which is, I think, an organization that supports women, more liberal women, running for office. This lady is an African American, of course. That was the condition to be nominated. You had to be an African American. Any other option, your resume was thrown away. You had to be African American. How is that accepted by African Americans? I don't know. How is that accepted by African Americans? I don't know. I have to think that a lot of them are asking the question, why are we still doing this? You know, so many years after the Civil Rights Act and so many years after so many opportunities are available to Black people, why are we still focusing on race as the only thing that seems to matter? I don't know. I don't know. I don't like it personally. I think that the best person should be selected. And if that person happens to be an African American, that's fine with me. But the message ought to be, we are going to take a look at the most qualified person. That's the message, and that's what we should be saying. You shouldn't be saying, we're going to look at the most qualified person, but she has to be an African American. Well, that to me is not correct. And I have nothing against this lady who's going to be the next senator of California. I wish her well. I hope she has a long record as a senator, but the way she's being picked is not the right way to do it. Well, thank you for listening. As we mentioned yesterday, the Cowboys had a great Sunday, and the baseball playoffs will start on Tuesday. So we will keep an eye on those during the week. Our Texas Rangers are in the playoffs. They're going to be playing Tampa Bay, and that's going to be a tough series. Those are two clubs with a lot of hitting. So one of the two will probably out hit the other. That's my opinion. Have a great day, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.